Welcome back to the channel. Thank y'all for hanging with me on this Tuesday. So in cold water, a spinnerbait is probably your most versatile bait depending on what you're fishing. This can be on flats, steeper cover, 45-degree angle banks, bluff walls, and any type of wood, stumps, laydowns, dock posts, and then around grass as well. So this is a very good bait that you're going to need in cooler water. And if you're not a fan of colder water, it's probably because you haven't thrown a spinnerbait enough. So my deal with the spinnerbait is I can fish it in all the same areas that I can fish a jig. But when they don't want something that is just sitting there, like a jerk bait or that slow dragging technique like a drop shot or a jig, you can keep that spinnerbait moving. So spinnerbait fishing for me is all about not reinventing the wheel. You got Colorado blades, you got turtleback blades, you got Indiana blades, and you got willow leaves, and keep it in those blades. These spinnerbaits that look like this, I've caught fish on this spinnerbait before, and I was a fan of it because I did well in a tournament on it. And I somehow was hanging out with Ish Monroe, and I told him I love that spinnerbait, and he was very angry at me. And that conversation that I had with Ish basically taught me everything I need to know about blades. It's not so much about trying to give the fish some kind of unique blade that they've never seen before. Even though these do work, so do all of these. All your Colorados, your willow leaves, your turtleback, and your Indiana. Now, I am not a huge fan of willow leaves. Willow leaves catch more fish than any of the other blades, but I feel like if you want to catch bigger fish, it's all about vibration with the spinnerbait. So as soon as that water cools off and gets out of the 70s, for me, it's all about something with some thump. So you can throw in Indiana. I like to mix and match with the Indianas and Colorados. But as we get into November, I'm all about smaller Colorado blades. So a 4 and a 3. I don't like to get too much bigger than a 4. A 4.5 to me is a little bit too big. I want to be still moving this bait as fast as I can, and then I can play with the trailer if I want that bait to ride up in the water column and slow roll it a little bit. I can put a big piece of plastic on it. If I want it down on the bottom, I want to, fish it slower, take that plastic off, no trailer whatsoever. But a spinner bait finesse with these smaller blades is going to be a really big deal once we get into some colder days where you don't necessarily know where the fish are at. Are they on the steeper stuff? You can catch them on a spinnerbait. Have they moved to those 45-degree angle banks? Are they still on cover, but you need to be banging that spinnerbait into the cover to get them to bite? So this is versatile. Now let's talk about how I set this up, because I haven't always done this, and I've got a pretty good system. So I just have a plastic jar that's full of spinnerbait blades. Now I don't need to have a pack of 4s and a pack of 5s and a pack of 6s and 7s. I just have pretty much every blade you could ever want. I can go in there and then within a couple seconds find me a 4 and a 3. Find me a 3.5 and a 4, whatever it is. I like hammered blades. I like gold blades. I like silver blades. These little orange kicker blades in really muddy water, bright chartreuse blades in really muddy water. They're all going to play around the spawn, post spawn, painted blades. I have another box of just spinnerbaits with painted blades on it. They're all going to play. Being a good spinnerbait fisherman is crucial when that water starts to chill off. So let's talk about the difference between a normal spinnerbait, which I can consider this a finesse spinnerbait with these smaller blades, and your actual finesse spinnerbait. So a regular spinnerbait has just a longer arm. So a finesse spinnerbait, not something I throw a whole lot. I just don't think I need it to be super compact. Shad don't swim always in little tiny schools. They kind of bunch. They're not always super bunched up. They're kind of spread out a little bit. So a finesse spinnerbait is really just a short arm spinnerbait. So you look at it, the same. That's a finesse. That's the same size head as your normal spinnerbait, and you just have a shorter arm there. So I'm not a huge fan of that. I want my bait to be a little bit more spread out. And if I want to go finesse, I will just downsize my blades, put a smaller trailer. I'm a huge fan of Kitech, Fat swing, fat impact, fat, swing impact, fat, whatever. Rage, striking rage swimmer. I like those on the back when I'm slow rolling. And like I said in the beginning of the video, when a jig just sitting there or a jerkbait paused is not what they want, I can cater to those same fish with the spinnerbait, just reeling it really slow. So throw it up there close to the bank. If you got to parallel the steeper stuff, but just start it out slow with your rod tip up, then slowly bring it down. You will feel your bait scrubbing the bottom, and it just seems like a spinnerbait has become such a better bait than it was 5 years ago in the last couple of years. Did a horrible job wording that. Spinnerbaits are becoming better than they were 5 years ago, and I don't know. Other baits have obviously taken the place of the spinnerbait for the last decade, and a lot of these fish that are 5 to 10 years old have not been around as many spinnerbaits as they were in the 2000s, early 2000s, 90s, and all that. So a spinnerbait, big deal. It's going to keep winning tournaments. It's going to continue to be a major player. And again, in the colder months, if you want to become a better cold water fisherman, it's hard to keep a chatterbait slow in those strike zones. A lot of times I've witnessed bass in the 40-degree water where they just come up behind your chatterbait and track it all the way back to the boat. They just can't move fast enough to get it. So if they're not buying a crankbait, which you can really slow down in colder water, spinnerbait's your other option you got to try. So we're not there yet. It's going to take a little bit longer, but in November, man, it chills off quick. So we're probably not a few weeks away from that water dropping down into the 50s or at least into the low 60s, and it's all about a spinnerbait. I've talked about this in a lot of other videos, but the blade combination for me, anything above 70 willow leaves, tandem, anything between 60 and 70, tandem Colorados, and then once we get cooler than 60, it's a single Colorado for me. The blades kind of depend on the size shad in your lake, but this is the time of year where we're getting less and less shad. Little thread fins are going to be your predominant forage going forward. So that's why I like to really downsize and keep it relatively finesse. So try that, guys. Good luck to you, and I'll see you on the water.